All right. So for the second episode of the First Hit podcast, we're going to start off with Yankees baseball. Now, is their AAA team better than their actual team? That is a legitimate question right now. Considering they just took 2 out of 3 from the Red Sox, they're looking solid and they're playing a lot of AL East teams right now. This is their time to gain ground. So what do you think, Jonathan?
I think in order to answer that question, we have to look at the differences between the two teams, so to speak. So the regular Yankees, you can kind of characterize them as sort of slow, very home run heavy, kind of waiting around for the home run. But then when you look at the Yankees team that played on Sunday, they were utilizing a lot of small ball stuff. They were faster. They're just, manufacturing runs. You saw Odor lay down a bunt and bring runners across. You don't see that hustle and small ball attitude with the normal Yankees. And I think they really were able to match up well with the Red Sox. That's kind of more what they do. So I think the way they played on Sunday and over the weekend, if they play more like that, I think that could help close that gap in division.
So you would think pitching and small ball are pretty much their route to passing the Blue Jays first and then hopefully gaining ground.
When you take that and combine it with their power-heavy offense, the key is the power-heavy offense is good, but not when you rely on it completely. When you should have that element of speed and small ball when things aren't going well with the power. I think that's something they've lacked. I think if they can inject that, that's going to be key.
Oh, like a Mets lineup with Brandon Nimmo in the front.
Yeah.
Guys like that, Nimmo, McNeil, similar setup where you have guys that will get on base 30, 40% of the time, almost guaranteed. And I think that's behind them, you have the Bombers, who even if they're not hitting, maybe you have back-to-back doubles to start off with the leadoff guys. That produces 1 run. You have good pitching. You can win games 1-0, 2-0. You can't depend on it, but that's a good way to start.
You just got to be able to win those
1 or 2 per game because you need to produce runs. And in close games, especially in playoffs where you're facing good pitchers basically every day, you're going to have to hit. And if you have guys like Judge, Stanton, Voit, any of that bunch, Sanchez, and they're striking out like crazy in one game, you never know. Especially if the Yankees end up in the wild card, you're going to have pretty much a very short enough time to get stuff going, and you can't wait. In the playoffs, you cannot wait.
One bad game, it's done.
That's simple. 1 game ends it.
I think they have someone like Garrett Cole. This is a wild card game. I think there's a pretty good chance that they pull ahead in a wild card game. But then you look ahead to a division series. If you're not getting that elite pitching performance every game, you still got to be able to put runs on the board, not just the power. I think that's really key for them.
Let's take a look at the Astros rotation right now. So the depth chart. All right, so we got a solid rotation. I'm just going to take note. Zach Greinke's still around.
Yeah.
That's insane.
He's that vet.
Yeah.
He's that guy.
I guess bullpen in the American League is more important right now, given the dependence on it, especially in the playoffs, where your starter only has to go 5 innings the most. I guess outside Garrett Cole, the Yankees should expect that in the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, Taillon recently, he's been doing well. Over his last 6 starts or so, he's pitched to a 2.86 ERA. So I think he's kind of becoming the guy that they were hoping to get when they made that trade. So I think you pencil him right in behind Cole. You can expect Montgomery. Ideally, he'd be your 5th guy, but he can kind of maybe pass as a 3 or 4 if they need him to in the playoff series.
You think
that's going to help the bullpen?
You think he can make his name in your rotation more so in the bullpen?
I think he's best suited for that bullpen role where he stretches out a little bit. He can pitch multiple innings.
Now, if he's a 2-inning guy in the playoffs, that can become very valuable.
Especially for the Yankee situation. Let's say you have Taillon pitch 5 innings, and then you turn it over to King, who can give you 2 or 3, and it gets you very deep into the game, and then you can hand it off to Green, or if Chapman can figure it out before the playoffs. That's a really easy path to win a game there.
You think the Yankees trade for someone like Craig Kimbrel?
I don't think so. No, I'm not sure what the prospect haul would be, but I think
I'm assuming you're giving up at least a mid-level, 2 mid-level prospects or 1 tier 1.
I don't think that's worth it. I don't think that position is enough of high impact to warrant it. I think Chad Green and Jonathan Loaizaga, I think they can make up for it until Chapman. And even if Chapman doesn't make it all the way back, those 2 can handle it well enough. I think they'd be better off going for outfield help, like Joey Gallo. He's going to give you a lot of power. Also, not only power, but he's Gold Glove defender, right?
Yeah.
He can play all three
Realize
outfield
that about
spots.
him. That's what makes him
Mm-hmm.
great. And at Yankee Stadium, he could get jammed and hit a pop-up out. That's insane. He's one of those guys that can get jammed at Yankee Stadium and home run. He
It's
could probably
crazy.
hit a ball off his bat and say, "Oh dang, I just flew out," and it goes out.
Yeah, the Yankees haven't had that lefty guy really since like, maybe Didi Gregorius left, and even he didn't have the same power as Joey Gallo does.
He wasn't even a power hitter. He was really more of a doubles hitter who could get on base.
Yeah, and with the Yankee Stadium's dimensions, you saw how his power profited.
Mm-hmm.
I think Joey Gallo, if he goes to the Yankees, that could be insane. The home run totals.
Absolutely. I think Joey Gallo, I mean, his on base is 391 right now.
That's very impressive.
I'm just saying, guys like Brandon Nimmo get around 400 at best.
Mm-hmm.
So he's up there. And that's because he walked like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he hits power.
Yankees need that too. They just need to get guys on base.
Joey Gallo's a good example of Moneyball.
Yeah.
I think he's like a perfect example of Moneyball, like in play. Home run totals are up. Leads the league in walks right now. And that's why he has the crazy on base.
Yeah.
So now the Yankees have to consider what do they do with Chapman.
I think they need to boost his confidence up first. They need to try to get him in games where the situation isn't too intense, like a four-run leader or so around there. Just get him in the ninth, just see what he does. They can't be afraid of him blowing another one. They just have to put him in there and just let him figure it out. And if he doesn't figure it out, then they have other issues.
But will that help a winning reliever?
Sure. I think it's the only thing they can really do right now. Is it worth it to put him in, a 1 or 2 run lead?
Mm-hmm.
The way he's pitching right now, I think you got to build him up first, especially where every game matters right now. They're chasing the Red Sox.
Keith, what would you do with a winning reliever like Chapman, similar to Diaz, who's struggling like crazy?
Well, actually, they've been pitching pretty similarly now because
they both started great and then they both collapsed.
Yeah.
And I think it's time to move on to someone else. Give someone a shot for a few games, see if they could hold it down. I mean, that was something that was a big issue with the Braves a few years ago. Anytime there was like a real set closer, they would start to collapse and it would start to switch on to the next guy. It worked out. So I think it's time to move on from Chapman and Diaz as closers.
Just throw them in the 8th inning, 7th inning role and hope they can figure it out there.
Yeah, and if they improve, you give them another chance in a safe situation. If they don't, they don't.
Sounds like a pretty good idea.
Make them a back end of the bullpen at September baseball. That's what they end up becoming. I mean, we're not that far off. Sure, we have a whole month to go before we have to start considering that, but in September baseball, everything changes, and then in the playoffs, everything gets tighter. So teams like the Yankees and Mets are going to have a lot of bullpen changes very quickly. And that's going to be huge for both teams. I think the bullpen is really a deciding factor, though, because both teams have shown offense, and both teams have shown the ability to put up runs. The Mets yesterday, for example.
Yeah.
Scoring 15 runs to win an insane game. Like that was insane.
Football game.
That was a football game.
Football score almost. Crazy.
They definitely need Lindor back to play shortstop. I think that game showed it. Guillorme isn't really a true shortstop. He's really a second baseman. Well, Gold Glove second baseman. But he's not a shortstop.
There's a difference. Yeah.
Different angles, and you're playing balls differently. And they don't really have a real shortstop on the team outside of Lindor.
That's your point.
Maybe you could argue Blankenhorn, who hit a 3-run homer the day before, but he hasn't really hit much at the major league level. So you got to think, what are your options? How are you going to play it? Maybe you have McNeil shift over for a game and try to do what you did with, if you remember some teams when they put catchers in the infield, like Travis Darnell, they flip them back and forth like crazy. And they could try something like that where they're always shifting. That might work, it might not. But you still need a real shortstop at some point. And if Lindor is not healthy, you got to look around. Probably not trade for shortstop. I would not recommend that, but you have to look to see if you have a good defender in the minor league somewhere. And you can't take out like a single-A shortstop, so you got to look at the upper levels, and that is someplace the Mets are lacking. Considering they traded basically their 2 best shortstops for Lindor. They're in trouble there. Then you have the Rollins hurt. Mets are not in a great spot, but they're still in a relatively good spot. They have a
2.5 game lead.
2.5 game lead on the Phillies, who have been playing outstanding as of late. And they're really holding their own. They have been playing the Pirates a lot, and they didn't really capitalize on that.
Yeah.
Hopefully now they can capitalize on the Reds a bit. But the Reds are still a good team.
Yeah, the Reds aren't. Yeah, they're pretty solid.
Reds have a playoff chance still, relatively.
Mhm.
Then they got the Blue Jays for 3,
Mhm.
which is an iffy
Tough one.
series. Maybe the Mets could help the Yankees out there.
Yeah, maybe we would take that.
And the Mets have the Braves for a set before going back to Cincinnati, home set. So the Braves series and the Toronto series back to back, that might be a place to capitalize if you can go into Toronto and beat a team like that has Vlad Guerrero Jr. You might be able to build on that. But first, they have to get through Cincinnati with a good. They really have to win the series. They have to consistently win series. They can't split series with the way the Phillies have been playing.
The Phillies are red hot right now.
Yeah, you cannot be splitting series the way the Phillies have been playing. All right, I think that's pretty much it. Oh, Chris Bryant trade. You want to talk about that quickly?
And end the second for time, and then restart after. Because what is it, 15 minutes?
Yeah, Keith, want to end it?
Keith, 15 minutes lost, right?
We're talking about the Chris Bryant possibility. Probably with Kimbrel in the same trade, maybe. That's iffy. But if the Mets consider Bryant, they have to consider Kimbrel in the same trade, which would be a blockbuster for sure, even if it's just Bryant. Now, the Mets do not want to trade Francisco Alvarez or Brett Baty in that type of trade because Chris Bryant is still a rental. He's not signed yet. Now, if the Mets trade for him and sign him, then fine. That fixes the problem entirely. But if they don't, that would be very bad if they trade a prospect like Brett Baty or Francisco Alvarez. Now, they're still willing to trade Mark Vientos, who leads the minor leagues in home runs at AA, or Ronnie Maruccio, who is or was their number 1 prospect coming into the season. So Ronnie Maruccio is a top 100 prospect, but you probably have to trade him to get Chris Bryant.
Do you think that's worth it? Do you think Chris Bryant's going to have big enough impact?
Well, you have to consider that Maruccio is our number 1 shortstop in our system, and there really aren't that many other shortstops in that system. And that's something you got to consider because shortstops, the advantage of having shortstops, you can put them anywhere. That's the main benefit to having a ton of shortstop prospects. You can shift them to third base, you can shift them to second base, and you can make it work. It's in their field. Hopefully, Chris Bryant can play the outfield a bit.
Yeah, he's played left field before, I think. He could help out there.
If you keep someone like Brett Baty around, which Mets fully intend to our current knowledge, you are going to have a problem in the long run unless you move Chris Bryant to the outfield. But Chris Bryant's pretty good at third base. Probably better than Brett Baty is.
He's also proven. You got to consider that.
Yeah, you got to think, okay, what are you going to do with Brett Baty now if you want to keep him around? He can hit, but he's not a great third base. He's definitely average at least, but he's not Chris Bryant, and he's still a single-A prospect.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's going to happen there, but if he does develop, then you have a serious question. What am I going to do with this guy?
Sure.
Maybe the NL gets a DH.
Maybe. Can you bank on that? I don't know.
No, you can't bank on it because the Mets were banking on it already with Alonso and Smith.
Do they know something we don't? I don't know. CBA is going to be interesting this offseason.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully, teams like the Mets can get lucky. Teams have a lot of hitters, but then they can't play them because they all play the same positions. Third base and first base are kind of the DH hotspots.
Yeah.
Guys that come up at first base and at third base, and they can't really shift it outfield fully.
Stick them in the corner. Yep.
Yeah. Another question is if the Mets are even going to consider re-signing Conforto the way he's been playing. Hopefully he can improve. I think he can. I think he will. But if you trade for Chris Bryant, how are you going to re-sign Conforto now?
I think, if they trade for Chris Bryant, I think that's kind of them choosing him over Conforto. I think that they know they can't sign both, especially the way Chris Bryant's been really good this year, and he's got that proven track record in the past. I mean, when Rookie of the Year, World Series MVP, he's got all those accolades. He's someone that's proven. And yeah, he's going to be expensive. He's got Scott Boras as his agent. But I think they do make that trade. Yeah,
Scott Boras is kind of just like here.
Yeah.
I pay tons of money. He's pretty
Garrett
good.
Cole, highest paid pitcher.
I would think if you're trading for Chris Bryant, you're gonna have to give him a very, very expensive deal. It won't be a Lindor deal that we know
No.
because Bryant's a bit older. He's a third baseman, not a shortstop, and he really hasn't hit as well before the contract relatively compared to Lindor.
Yeah.
Lindor
Well,
before
Lindor
the
was
contract-
he was a solid hitter, and then he gave a lot of value defensively. Chris Bryant,
Yeah,
you
that
can't
was
really do
what-
that at third. Yeah.
Yeah, third base. No, even unless you're Nolan Arenado,
Yeah.
you're not really saving a team. Maybe Matt Chapman is up
Yeah,
there too.
those two. Yeah, it's really just
I
those
think
two,
those
to be
two.
honest.
That's really it. Yeah, those are only two third basemen in the league that I think are consistently true third baseman. Because a few guys that like our shortstops you put at third, but that's different.
Yeah.
Those are the only
Lindor,
two.
true.
Yeah, those are the
Yeah.
only two. It's hard to get a true shortstop too.
Mm-hmm.
Every single
Lindor,
team
he is true
is a
shortstop.
true shortstop. And the Mets have a lot of considerations moving forward. Hopefully, the rotation figures itself out. Hopefully, bullpen can somewhat figure itself out because they start off the year pretty good. They've struggled with Diaz, the struggles pretty much. The
Yeah.
offense is finally healthy, but then Lindor gets hurt.
Yeah.
So they're in a good spot, but a tough spot.
Yeah.
They have a lot of
Injuries
decisions,
really.
but they have a lot of pieces.
Mm-hmm. The worst spot to be in.
Yeah.
Not at all, especially the division. Sure.
Now let's end this one little segment with a bit of Braves baseball real quick. So the Braves are playing okay. Not having Acuna is going to hurt them. Keith, do you think they can make a playoff run with the way the Phillies and Mets have been playing?
Probably not. I don't think so because now, well, the problem all season has been the pitching has been too inconsistent. They go up from shutting out, like we shut out Tampa the other night, and then we gave up, 9 runs the day before that without scoring any runs. And then last night we gave up a whole bunch of runs, and I think it was 7-5 was the score.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, it's the problem with the pitching, at least last year, was it was consistent. We had some bullpen issues at times, but that was about it. Now it doesn't matter. Starting bullpen, it's all collapsing. And with that, it's not going to make playoffs.
Do you think they can make a trade for a pitcher that has some term after this season?
It's possible because I know Atlanta wants to be buyers. I mean, you already got Jock Peterson, but the odds of it really making an impact this season are going to be slim. But someone with term could make sense.
Do you think they pull off a crazy trade for someone like Jose Barrios, who still has more time left after this year, and is a guy you could possibly sign to a longer-term deal?
I don't know if they're going to pull off a crazy trade. I don't know how much they really want to give up for one piece.
They depend upon Soroka coming back, though. Guys like Soroka. I mean,
it depends on Soroka, but I also think that you could probably get some under free agency. Well,
Yeah, I was thinking.
It depends what Minnesota's demands are.
mhm.
If they're reasonable, I think they'll do it. But if it's an overpayment, I don't think Atlanta's going to
I
pull.
doubt it will be too reasonable for someone like Jose Barrios, who still has another year left, who's an extension candidate. And quite a few teams need pitching help. Every single deadline, teams need pitching help, teams need hitting help, teams need bullpen help. Different teams need different things at all times. And it seems like it's a need across the league right now for someone like Jose Barrios.
Well, I think this year's just kind of a lost cause in general.
Mm-hmm.
So let another team overpay for someone like that. There's no need to give up a prospect that, I mean, next year could help you, or not next year, but maybe in 2 or 3 years.
Where all your starters will still be mostly young, because all your starters, you're a pretty young team.
Our window, I think, is just open.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably the last 2 years it's been open, and I don't think it's going to be closing anytime soon. There's no reason to just rush and go ahead and give up a few prospects for a guy who's going to help us out a year or two. We're not in a rush to win a World Series by any means.
Mm-hmm. Somewhat a similar situation to the Islanders roster, with young players being the core, and you're just filling in the fringes, trying to get that winning team. Okay, that's going to be it for this segment. Let's move on to the next one. We're talking Islanders hockey. Luckily, they have a lot of news. So they trade away Nick Leddy. They trade away Andrew Ladd, and they re-sign Adam Green. Huge set of moves. and their protected list is very interesting. So let's get started. So the Devontae trade and Nick Leddy trade pretty much led to the Andrew Ladd trade. And the Islanders really didn't give up a huge amount to trade away Andrew Ladd. Like, it's so horrible that they have to give up that much of their cap space, but it's not as bad as we expected. We were thinking a first round pick was a guarantee in that trade. Now, 2 second rounders for trading away Andrew Ladd for basically nothing sucks. And giving away that conditional 3rd round pick, which we know we're going to give. I mean, you're giving away a pick for him to play a game.
What a condition.
That's basically a condition, like, if he doesn't retire.
Yeah.
I don't even know. That's basically it.
If you don't put him on LTIR for no reason, we will give you a 3rd.
Yeah, unless you like decide. But Arizona has a cap space, so they're gonna like keep him around just to play that one game.
Yeah, they're gonna have him play one game, and then he's gonna pull a Marian Hossa and get allergic to his equipment.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. That's a perfect excuse. I think I don't even know how to consider not playing. Like, in all reality, you're playing him for a game for a 3rd round pick. Like, just any free draft pick, like, it's basically a free draft pick to put him out there on the ice.
And there's no limit, like, for how long he has to play. Just send him out there for a shift.
30 seconds. Send him out for 30 seconds.
Look over the line, and that's it.
It has to appear.
I can't see them not doing that. I mean, the Nick Leddy deal, getting the 2nd round pick and getting Richard Panik, that's a solid trade.
Good bomb.
Kind of had to do it. Sad to see Nick Leddy go. And that 2nd round pick helped to make the Ladd trade without destroying their really next 2 drafts. Giving up that 3rd rounder is really the only thing they're really giving up. You consider it's basically giving up Devontae, Nick Leddy for getting rid of Ladd's contract. That's not good, but they have to do it. They probably have to trade away someone anyway, which probably would have been Nick Leddy anyway, because of the expansion draft, that's tough. I mean, they also re-signed Green to be that exposed defenseman, which they also had to do. And luckily, Green was willing to do it. Now, Seattle's going to take the New York Islanders forward probably, unless there's a trade. There could be a trade. We don't know any agreements yet, but we know the asking price is high. We know it's a 1st and a 2nd or a 3rd, depending on the player. And you're giving up that to get them to take somebody else, probably a goalie like Appleby, but it's Eberle or Bailey right now.
I have a hunch that they're going for Bellows.
That could be possible because he's on a fairly cheap deal. He's on league minimum. You re-sign him for a longer contract too. Bellows is a sneaky skilled player because he's actually solid. He could be good.
I think it depends what they do with the rest of the positions. If they max out on like goaltending, let's say you go for a goalie like Price. Now I know Price is going to miss the start of the season, maybe the first half.
Mhm.
That's still an option. He's one of the highest paid goalie in the league right now. So you're going to have to cheap out on a forward or two, and I think for Bellows may be your option to cheap out on a pretty good forward,
which would work out perfectly almost for the Islanders because they can't really play Bellows right now. If you keep Bailey or Eberle around, you don't have a spot for Bellows. And Bellows is worth something. I mean, he's definitely a solid player. We've seen him score at the NHL level. We've seen him play a Anders Lee-like game. So he definitely has potential. Now, if Seattle picks up someone like him, I could see it happening. But I could also see someone like Josh Bailey being chosen because of his leadership and because of his contract length.
That is true, yes. But also, I mean, what about Eberle though, too? Because that's another guy who's been around for a while.
The current word around the league right now is that they're favoring Bailey right now.
Yeah.
But Eberle is still, that's your first liner. Like, the Kraken have a shot at a legitimate first liner. And let's say they also pick up Tarasenko. That's scary. They pick up those two. And then they fill it in with a few younger guys. That Seattle could actually be solid. Now, Seattle probably will take a few guys on like 1 or 2 year deals. They could trade off the picks.
Yeah, just next, like what they did with Vegas did with just trading the next day pretty much.
Yeah, I could see teams doing that.
Yeah.
I could see Seattle doing that. I mean, I could also see Seattle, some teams going to trade picks to get them to take a player. It's probably going to, I can't see Seattle not taking at least one trade like that.
There's probably going to be like 2 or 3.
Probably 2 or 3. They're going to get some good draft capital out of that. Seattle's in a good spot. I mean, any expansion team, you're in a good spot automatically start because you have the whole league basically giving you everything to get you to not take 1 player, 2 players.
Yeah, I also think they're kind of lucky because remember, the expansion drafts used to have multiple teams. So you had to compete with the other team to get that player that you wanted, and you couldn't take like 2 players from one team. So they're in a great spot because they could have whoever they want as long as they're underneath the cap.
Pretty much Vegas, and I mean, Vegas showed it. Vegas showed that if you can make a few trades during draft day, you end up with top 5 pick maybe, which Seattle has. You can build a win team right off the bat.
I think the other thing, though, was the mentality in the locker room. You get a bunch of guys who cast us and say, all right, we have something to prove that these teams should have gotten rid of us. And I think when Vegas started bringing in guys like Stastny, let's just say, right, because that was one of their big first signings in Pacioretty, the team looked differently on the ice. It felt different in the playoffs. It wasn't a team about, these cast-offs had something to prove. Now they're bringing these big-name guys on their big contracts. And it felt like there was more of an ego out there, and I think that's why
guys want to play in Vegas. It's a nice place to play. A lot of players do. Some players have off-season homes there, too. So, I mean, it makes sense that a lot of players want to play in Vegas. I could see, I mean, the Islanders are certainly a tougher position than a team like, say, the Rangers with the expansion draft. Because the Rangers are really only protecting their core. That's pretty much it. Protecting your main core and not really much else to protect there. But from a Islanders perspective, you have a few issues, obviously, with really 3 guys. You kind of want to keep Bellows, right? You do want to keep Bellows, but if it's Bellows and you're keeping Eberle and Bailey, you're good. There's one more thing to consider with that, though. If they take Eberle or Bailey, they have the cap space to go after Gabriel Landeskog. Maybe. It might cost you $10 million, but they have the cap space.
Now, I'm assuming that Seattle wouldn't take him because he's a free agent.
Yeah.
He wouldn't sign with Seattle.
Yeah, I can't see that happening.
I would say, though, right now I think we can agree that the Islanders' defensive core is pretty much set. I think between Sorokin being the goalie, and I think between obviously their top 4,
they're gonna re-sign. They're gonna give Sorokin a solid deal right now.
Yeah,
with some term. They're gonna give Pelech a very good deal, and no matter what deal you give Pelech, it's a steal.
Yeah, because he's not gonna make 6. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he's not gonna make 6, and he's really worth 8. Let's be honest. I mean, watching him play,
I would say so.
Because he's like the complete opposite of the average guy that makes $8 million, and that's what makes him be worth $8 million.
Well, that's also the thing. There's no command for a guy like Pelech's play style.
Yeah.
No one really wants a defensive defenseman. Most teams are looking for 2-way guys now.
And the thing is, like, a true defensive defenseman probably has more impact than your average 2-way guy now, who will get the same amount of money.
If you can make a pairing like the Islanders have, where you have your offensive guy in Kulak and then you have your guy in Pelech, I mean, that's perfect. That's why
the one thing the Islanders need is to secure Nick Leddy's replacement on the offensive side of Mayfield, which they might already have in Samuel Bolduc. So if they have a few defensive prospects that still have to come up. Like the Islanders' D-core was well established. They had years where they were drafting 4 or 5 defensemen pretty much at minimum. So the Islanders really set up that team almost built for Barry Trotz. Like this team was built for a guy like Barry Trotz to come in and put up a win team. Now, the one issue is if they do have to go after someone like Gabriel Landeskog, right? Can they still re-sign Zizekas? Can they still ensure that they can re-sign other restricted free agents? Remember, Beauvillier is also a RFA.
That's a problem because, the Islanders offense at least in the playoffs, did struggle.
Oh yeah,
We're winning every game or winning or losing every game by small margins, and we're losing
one goal games, 2 goal games at most. They were
So
not winning games 6-0 ever, really.
I brought up Sorokin, and that's why I was bringing up the defense. That's set. You can win a championship with Sorokin. You can win a championship with that defense and Varlamov.
And remember, Varley's still around. Yeah, Varley's still under contract, and he could have been the best goalie in the year last year. He's up there. I mean,
I think you try to get Landeskog on a deal. Zizekas might be gone, but I think that's a risk you have to take.
I mean, that's also possibly why they kept around Martin and Clutterbuck. Could Zizekas take a cheaper contract to stick around, considering he already did it once?
Ability. Give him a 1-year, 2-year deal. See what he wants.
I don't know if he would want a 1 or 2 year deal at this point in his career, though. He might want something to almost finish it out, which I don't think the Islanders could give him. That's the issue. That's the line you kind of have to run with a forward like Zizekas. Let's be honest, he's one of the best face-off guys in the league. He's up there consistently, and he's the core of that fourth line. That fourth line, which sets up the Islanders every single game. They're the first line out there. So that's something they really have to consider. You got to kind of keep Zizekas around, and you got to re-sign guys like Alex Sorokin and Villiers. It's a tough spot, but if they could sign all 4 of those guys for under $10 million, which is a tough ask, probably not happening. But then they should easily be able to sign someone like Landeskog.
I think that to sign all 3 guys under 10 is going to be tough.
Maybe you trade away someone like Richard Panik, who you just got, right? Expose a little more cap.
That's true.
If someone like Eberle is taken, Bailey is taken, you might have room, especially if he's willing to come to New York to be on a winner, because he might be that missing piece. But the Islanders have been looking for that one wing for Matt Barzal for a while. Like Eberle and Lee were great, and they made a very scary first line. But the issue really was a power play, because neither one of those guys were true power play setup forwards. They weren't going to sit there in the slot and take those risks that Barzal is perfect to set up. They kind of need that guy. I don't know if Gabriel Landeskog could really do that compared to what they already had, but hopefully maybe Beauvillier, Wallstrom, that's also an option, because Beauvillier, at times, he looks like a 20-point player, and at times he looks like a 60-point player.
That's what I was hoping for. You can get him on a pay cut if it's consistent.
Mm-hmm. You can get him on a pay cut because he's very inconsistent. Like, he'll have months where you question if he's even an NHL player. And then you'll have months where he is first line at worst. If he was with Matt Barzal on the first line, let's say Eberle's taken, you don't sign someone to really take his spot. Could he evolve into that first line winger, that sniper, which we've seen? Now, he came up as a playmaker. Remember that. He came up to be a playmaking center for your second line behind Barzal. And he's not that guy. Fine. He's a winger. He's a pretty good winger, but he's not yet proven that he can be a first line winger. You think he could do that?
Not yet. I think he needs more time to really be playing the first line consistently.
So you think he needs 1 or 2 more years to really think about putting him up there with Barzal?
I think, work on it, obviously, in preseason. It's something you can experiment with and see if it works.
Mm-hmm.
But
Remember the Andrew Ladd line with Barzal? When that line was working for a bit?
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So they put Andrew Ladd and Villiers on the line with Barzal because they realized that having guys like Barzal and Villiers together, the speed worked out well. And then Ladd would just come up behind them and snipe home wrister. Now, they might be able to do that with Anders Lee taking the last spot, which is by far an improvement. And Villiers is definitely better now. Barzal's better now. Now, you have to question, also, if you're bringing someone like Gabriel Landeskog in, he's coming into the Trotz system, right? His point totals are going to go down. That's a given.
Yeah.
So the Islanders are also in a tough spot. Clearly, their core is secured. So you're not saying this team's going to collapse from any one move. The question is, how can they finish building this team into a not only championship contender, but a clean, easy cup contender because they've been there. They've been close enough. They've been right there. They've been on Tampa's tail, and Tampa's really the only team that looks like they can compete with them. In the playoffs, Tampa looks like the only team that can show up to beat them, especially when guys like Adam Pelt are healthy. All right, that's going to be it for the segment. Next, we're going to talk Rangers hockey. You got Rangers hockey. Barclay Goodrow. That's a place to start. The Rangers traded a 7th-round pick for pretty much early access to try and sign him. Now, if he hits free agency, that would be a lost trade. Now, the Rangers pretty much have to sign him, and they're probably going to give him a little more money than what he's actually worth. That's what usually happens when you trade a pick to get early access to signing a guy. So, Jonathan, what do you think, first of all?
So I think the player that they're going to be getting, I think it's a good fit for them. I think the Rangers were really affected by the whole Panarin, Tom Wilson situation. I think they felt the perception of the Rangers getting bullied constantly by other teams, especially the Islanders. Those couple games they had last season.
That's where it shows up a lot against the Islanders. Because Islanders are built on that. And they play the Islanders, and you got guys like Ross Johnson and Matt Martin pushing the Rangers around.
Exactly.
I think possibly a playoff matchup one day.
Maybe not this year. Count that out.
Maybe not this year or next year, but it's going to one day be a playoff matchup because if the Islanders have a 6 to 8 year window and the Rangers have a similar window, that's where you could see it.
Yeah, you don't want to have a really highly skilled team, and then when you face a team like the Islanders in the playoffs, you don't want to get pushed around the way they did. So I see why they wanted to bring in someone like Barclay Goodrow. He's going to be a tough player. He probably won't be a top sixer, but that's just something they've resigned themselves to. And of course, the money is going to be more than what you want, but like you said, that's what you expect when you trade a pick for exclusive early rights to sign a guy.
Yeah,
I think it's a solid trade, but it's going to end up being a little bit of an overpay. But it is what it is.
No matter what, it's going to be an overpay. I can't see them really signing him for cheap.
Yeah, in terms of money and contract length, the last I heard was $3.6 million for 6 years.
And some people are saying 4.
It could get there.
If it's 4 for 6 years, you're giving a lot. And at that point, you're giving him almost double what he might get on the open market at times. On the open market, he might get 3 years at $3 million, right, per year. It's still solid, but if he gets $4 million a year for 6 years, that's the type of contract that towards the end you gotta look at how am I gonna dump this contract.
That's my fear with it. I think that the AAV is okay because the Rangers
AAV is fine short term.
Exactly. Short term, you sign him to a 3-year deal. That's perfect. But why 6? Who came up with
6 years? It looks like if you're giving him 6 years, you're in trouble. Even if you're paying him almost nothing.
That's a buyout. That's a guaranteed buyout.
Yeah, I think they know that.
Considering the type of player he is, he's not a scorer. I'm not saying he's a goon, but he's more of an enforcer.
He plays that role. I mean,
that's what they want.
And it's a need for Rangers. So if you want to give him a little extra money, that's fine. But his decline is going to be horrendous by the end of that contract.
Look at a guy like almost Cal Clutterbuck. I mean, Clutterbuck's great, but he's not what he used to be. He used to be a guaranteed 15 goals per year minimum. A guy who could hit 20. He didn't really hit 20, but he could hit 20. And he was a good fourth liner. Now, Goodrow, at times, could almost hit that level. But he's not going to hold it up later in his career. That's pretty much a given for that type of player. Because he doesn't really play a skillful game, which means he takes a lot of hits and gives a lot of hits. That's a physical game. That's not going to hold as you get older. And he seems like the type of guy you certainly don't want to get a type of deal to. But if they don't, and they have him go to open market, they waste a 7th-round pick. Not that big of a deal, a 7th-round pick, but you don't want to waste it. Generally, if you trade for a guy signing rights, you need to re-sign the player.
I think at this point, I'd actually rather waste a 7th-round pick than give him 6 years.
I think if you can get him down to 4 years, maybe
4 solid, 3 to 4.
4 years at $4 million per year, $16 million deal. That's solid. That's probably better.
I think that's something that he'll take because
maybe even up to 4.5 per year to get him on a short deal if you have to.
Yeah.
If you can get him on a 3-year deal at 4.5, that's what the Rangers need more than anything right now.
I mean, I think for the role he plays, because they don't have Lemieux anymore, it makes sense why you would give him that money. It's just I don't get the term. That's all.
What is the current Rangers expansion draft list?
So, so right now, their notable exposures are Anthony Bietto and Tony DeAngelo.
DeAngelo was given.
But would Seattle take a risk?
Taken.
I
He
don't think they're
clearly
gonna
has
take.
personality problems.
Oh yeah, there's a risk.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But he might be talented enough that they take a risk.
Well, I haven't heard about him in a while, obviously, since the start of the season.
Yeah.
If he's cleaned up sacked, I don't see why he can't get a second shot. The problem is his contract.
Yeah, but he's only 25.
Young two-way defenseman.
Yeah, and you're building a team. So I could see that being a consideration at least. I mean,
Like I said, I think as long as he cleaned up his act, it's a good move. But there's still issues off the ice, and that could be a problem. Maybe also going for Keith Kincaid, goaltender.
it's possible. Yeah.
Had a really good season last year. I think he was even playing over Georgiev at times.
Mhm.
So that's like I'm thinking. Here's what I'm thinking: like Seattle in general with goaltenders, because everybody's saying Price, and I don't know if they want to take a risk on Price because of his injury.
Mhm. Well, here's also the question. Maybe it's not even an injury, like serious injury. There's probably something, but maybe it's not as serious as they're making it out to be.
That's true.
Because the timing is very questionable.
Not really. All the injuries get released right after the playoffs. Let's be honest.
Yeah, true. But right now, right before the draft,
That's true.
literally the day you release the expansion list, you tell them, oh, by the way, the biggest guy we put on the list, he's hurt. Yeah, you can't get him. Yeah, he's gonna be out for the season.
I don't think they said season. I think they said start. He's
For now, start, but it's gonna become season.
Oh yeah. But like the day before, it's gonna be like, yeah, guy's out for the year.
Yeah, might end his career.
He's gonna go to
something about.
the doctor. Oh, he went to Sweden for experimental surgery at work. He's back now. Gonna start the season 2. But I'm thinking goaltender wise for Seattle in general, Kincaid and maybe Jari.
Yeah, Tristan Jarry.
I mean, I know that's not Marc-Andre Fleury by any means. Let's be honest.
Well, here's the thing. He's definitely solid. He can be an league average goaltender, but he's not a playoff goalie.
No.
We saw that against the Islanders. He is not a playoff goalie. He basically lost on that series.
Well, maybe I'm not saying that they get one, but maybe with a second, third round pick, that's what you get. That's what you draft.
Yeah,
You draft that potential.
I mean, especially if you think he could be a starter, because I don't know what Seattle Sky will put on him. Maybe they see a tweak they can make, right? Because they're not just looking for what they could get; they're looking for value at what they can get. Because that's why they look at someone like Bellows. The same concept applies here. If they see someone like Tristan Jarry and they say, "Hey, maybe if I have a good goaltending coach, I can make a tweak or two. Maybe he could improve."
That's true.
Maybe it's mental, right? With him, maybe it's mental. I mean, you play on a team like Pittsburgh, right? You're playing for a powerhouse, but still, there's a lot of pressure playing for Pittsburgh right now. Considering they're trying to make the most of their remaining window, which is very short.
I give it 2 or 3 years at this point.
At most, yeah. They're trying to finish up with, if they get another cup, they're already a great legendary team.
Yeah.
It's a Crosby era Penguins. That's what it is. I mean, Malkin is a franchise center on other teams. Pittsburgh that's really a team that everyone still has to watch out for. But if they take Tristan Jarry, I don't see them really making a run anytime soon.
And the problem with Pittsburgh right now is that JR pretty much has, for the last how many seasons, trade away their first.
Yeah, they haven't had picks.
And like that team had, a top 20 pick, a top 30 pick.
Mm-hmm. That's also the fear with the Islanders. If they try to trade picks right now.
Well, right now it makes sense because you're still early in your window.
Yeah.
So right now is the time you want to do that. But when you have 3 years left on a window, you're still trading first for salary cap, and what are you trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, if it's like, so if Matt Barzal is like 33, right, in your windows, you're thinking about the window closing, although he might be fast enough that his window might be a bit longer, right? Because he's let's be honest, his speed might not go away much of the age because he'll still be fast compared to average player.
I think he'll still have his playmaking ability. That's a given.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much with that, I mean, Isles and Rangers have one advantage. They're young teams. That's their advantage. The Islanders are right there on the line. They're one step away from the cup. The Rangers are basically a piece away from the playoffs. You never know. They're a piece or two away, one good move, two good moves. But the Rangers also can't sacrifice their future, especially if someone like Lafreniere doesn't fully pan out, right? Then you got to rethink the scenario. Anyway, I mean, the hope right now with the Rangers, they probably won't lose a lot in the expansion draft compared to a team like the Islanders that has a lot of pieces exposed, but they need to sign Gaudreau right now. That's one of their priorities pretty much. And if not him, they have to look to who else they can get. All right. And that's it for this podcast episode. See you all next one.